Hello everyone, welcome to the part 3 for interface management. You might have seen two other parts in case you were wondering what is this interface management all about. I'll do a quick recap, but most importantly, if you want to take a quick peek at two of the other videos that I made, one is introduction of interface concept as to what it means and what are the focus areas for the design phase of any project. On the other hand, interface, how should you be applying interface tools and what are the key focus areas for managing interface for construction execution phase. In this segment and in this part, what I want to talk about is in case if you are working in a project that is working within a brownfield environment. Brownfield in oil and gas sector is known as environment where you have operations activity going on at the same time side by side. Depending on your jurisdiction, your locality, or your norm, the brownfield could be called something else. If your project is grassroots, in case that is known as greenfield, just so that you know when I say brownfield multiple times in this video, you can understand what I actually trying to say. I'm very excited because many times I have noticed, at least over the last couple of years, is what happens is during project development as well as construction, there's less thought given to interface with operations. And especially if you are working as an owner's engineer or project engineer, project manager, construction manager, what have you from an owner side, there is more likelihood that you have this built-in internal idea that somehow operations is part of the company, so must be part of the team. You are right, but oftentimes what happens is that you go into a project, or at least it's designed, it's constructed, or maybe it will be constructed, you are going in the field. I think interface with operation does not mean you have to start interface process during when you are in the field. I think that critical thinking needs to start before even you are in the field. And that some of the items that I will bring up in this video hopefully will tell you why you need to start that critical thinking process before you even in the field. As with other interface management process, whether that is interface during the design phase or interface during the construction phase, interface with operations is an important element for success if you are in a brownfield environment. One of the one of the things that I have noticed in my own personal limited experience over the last 10 years is the project team comes in or develops a project without giving thought to operations. What are some of the constraints they may be facing? What are some of the challenges they are going through? There could be another project that apart from your project that is being developed or designed by some other group, maybe within the same company, but in a company that may have thousands of employees and thousands of people. There could be other group that may be also planning the different project, not necessarily same project, hopefully not same project, different project. Maybe another upgrade that they're working on the PLC or something else that not necessarily in the forefront of yours, and without going through the operations, you may not know some of those challenges that may be brewing. So very important to understand and establish those communication channels early during your project development as well as in construction before you go into the construction part. So the first thing this is not an exhaustive list. This list is based on, in my view, some of the key focus areas that you should focus on, because you may find that by working together through this interface process with operations, you may find that there are opportunities that both parties can benefit from and come up with some win-win interface agreements. And even though, as I have just told you, that you may think you are part of the same team, and in theory you are. It is important to establish those interface agreements in writing, because that allows people to think it through and put the critical thinking in. It's just not another phone call, hey man, I'm going to do that, and he says or she says thank you very much, and then suddenly a month from that time maybe people moved or maybe something else, and now you are not, but the parties are not aligned anymore. So the first one that comes to my mind is backfill material. So if you are doing a project that has at least some underground construction, maybe you are laying a pipe, maybe you are doing excavation to build a new road or new facility, maybe a rail yard, what have you, in case you have to have or source backfill material, you may find that your company, or at least within your organization, someone may have excess backfill material that meets your spec. Obviously, you have to check that. You also have to check whether that material has any contaminants that you cannot use. Basically, it needs to meet your specification. So if it does meet, you may find that in case if it's within the same facility, physically speaking, then you may find that sourcing that backfill material within the organization will be cheaper. That's a point taken. Number two, you will also have less cost to haul that material from point A to point B. I think that is also very well understood. So between the two, cheaper material itself, the sourcing and the hauling cost will be lower. I think you will have great time saving some good dollars for your organization. So make sure, if you have lots of excavation work that's going on and you have to source backfill material, even if you cannot source all layers of backfill material, make sure that you source, if there is backfill material available, even if it's 1 or 2 layer within your overall segment from your specification, you source that backfill material within your organization through an interface agreement early in your design phase. Number two, related to backfill, is waste disposal. If you are excavating to build whatever you are building, you also need to dispose your your excavated material, the material that you just took out. Most likely that material does not meet the spec, and that's why you cannot use it as backfill. But obviously you have to double check that if you can reuse the material that you just excavated, rather than saying it's a waste, can you reuse it as your backfill material? But in case you are not, then you have to dispose of it in the appropriate manner based on the local jurisdiction and the regulations that you may have. In many situations, what I have seen is that waste disposal has to go, in case it's a contaminated soil or something, it has to go somewhere else, long distance hauling, as well as it has to go through a process, and the madness does not stop there, and it costs dearly. And the more important is that the productivity goes down, because you now need to bring in trucks. You also have restriction on how many trucks you can bring in a day, because the same haul roads are being utilized, maybe some other projects, maybe some other parties, maybe operations, and so on. So in case you can find a location within your physical boundary that where you are working, in case you can find a location, even if that location is not fit for purpose for the type of waste that you produce, you may be able to produce a temporary system or temporary facility there where you can store material. What it does is that during construction, because you only have during excavation and the excavation type of work, you only have limited window. Let's say the rainy season is forthcoming, so you do not want to waste your time hauling material in and out. What you want to do is to, let's say you bring 3 or 4 or I don't know 10 trucks, and they are taking those material, and then they are, rather than going somewhere else 30 kilometers away, they are disposing of this material in a temporary facility, temporary area within your physical work environment. This allows you to quickly turn over the excavation madness into a product that everybody likes. And obviously you may think that, hey, that will involve double handling. Obviously, you have to do that analysis whether that double handling makes sense in this case, because you will gain significantly. What I have seen, because people do not want to do that because they think in their mind, oh, I have to do double handling, I have to do double handling. But guess what? You may need to do some double handling, but you will reduce your overall duration for your excavation, because excavation also involves, if it is raining, guess what? Now you have to do water management. You need to bring in pumps so that you can get rid of the water and so on and so forth. So it might make sense to do that double handling. So but make sure that you do your analysis before you jump into that wagon. The more important, the key message for backfill or waste disposal, if there is opportunity to do it in-house within your physical boundary, go for it. Lay down area and other temporary construction facilities. Very important. Like when you are doing your or developing your construction plan, make sure that your access and egress from site or operations facility is well understood. And make sure that you also take into account the seasonality consideration. Will there be, if there is heavy rain environment or heavy snow environment, too cold, you need to establish your hygiene station so that people can take break, so that they can get back, they can take those breaks as required. You also need to ensure that you establish your lighting facilities, the power source, as well as office trailers. So lay down, access egress, wash cars, lighting, all those things you need to establish upfront. And importantly, you need to have those interface agreements going with operations. You may end up finding that if there is some other project going on in the same vicinity, that your interface agreement will involve, now it's a three-party interface agreement. You need to have operations buy-in, you need to have that other project buy-in, and need to convince them that why you need to be in that specific location and how you can also help each other. Because if there are multiple projects at the same time, there is a possibility that you may be able to stagger your breaks and other things, so that you may be able to share some of those costs, like wash car cost or lighting cost, with another project. So it's not always a bad thing. Having these interfaces and understanding those interfaces early enough will allow you to take advantage of those synergies that you may find yourself in, turning challenges into opportunities, as you have heard from others as well. The other thing that I want to touch on is operations facilities use. When you are doing a project in an operating facility, you may end up using, or at least planning to use some of those operations facility. One of the examples that comes to my mind, you may, which is not ideal, but there is situations where I have seen the people end up using firewater for hydro testing. Again, I'm not advocating for that, but if you have to use any operations facility for construction purposes, you need to plan ahead so that you can do, depending on your company, if you are using a safety critical equipment, that means that there's a defeat involved. That means you need to most likely fill out some documents, some paperwork, make sure that the emergency team knows about it, and so on and so forth. But sometimes it makes sense to rather than hauling lots of water or bringing some spec water from somewhere else, it may make sense to, if you have another, let's say, fire hydrant or something else, other ways of managing that specific. I'm just using one example, managing that challenge somewhere in your locality or in your project. Then you may be given that opportunity, that go ahead and defeat and use that facility for project purpose. But you need to have that written down, establish that how you will ensure that their facility is not under any emergency problem, and in case of emergency they have the other means of fighting that situation. In case in this example I'm just talking about a fire hydrant and using that water for hydro testing. Permitting is another big thing. In case if you are in a brownfield environment or an operational facility, you have to establish who provides the daily work permit for work. Is it operations that you are asking permits from, or is it someone, maybe operations is authorizing your permit, but the permit is being written by your project group. Key is that the permitting strategy needs to be well understood, well established, and agreed to by all parties. Permitting can cause lots of delays if the permit is coming from operations, because operations obviously their primary focus is operations. Obviously, it's an operating facility, and even your focus will become to ensure that you are not blocking their operations or blocking them or interrupting their operation as much as possible. So, long story short, make sure that you establish your permitting strategy with operations as you go in a project within an operating environment. The other thing that you may want to make sure, or it's not that it's a desire or wish, it's a must, is emergency drills. In any operating environment, there are always emergency drills being planned. It could be run for your life, like there's a fire situation, it's emergency drill. Again, this is a drill, this is not real, but you need to know if there is any alarm or anything that is being planned. Who will tell you about that at least 24 or 48 hours in advance? How you will ensure that your folks are also in line with what will you do? Like, are you going to continue work even if the folks from operations are running away and they're taking part in the drill, or what will you do? Most likely, I have seen both ways. I have seen people still keep working. I have also seen people taking part as part of the overall organization, and they're all taking part in the drill. Regardless there's no right and wrong answer. The most important answer or most important point in this situation is that you need to know which one you want to pick, and by talking with operations and by making sure that you guys understand each other's constraint, you may be able to find a common ground where either you take part or you don't take part. But you need to know who informs you when this is happening, so that people don't panic. Someone working 10-story high in a scaffold and suddenly he's panicking, oh, I have to come down. And in case of a real emergency, you need to know how will that situation be resolved, because you are working in an operations environment. So other than emergency drills, so that's a good segue that in case of real emergency, for example, you could have H2S alarm, there could be a fire, there could be explosion, there could be other emergencies within the facility because it's an operating facility. What will you do? What is the protocol? Who goes out? Who counts people's heads and so on? You need to establish all those protocols. What alarm your folks may hear or see, because there could be beacons and other things. There could be announcement that will be made. So what are the orientation requirement that your people needs to go through? Who will inform you that it's not an emergency drill and you have to go? So those things needs to be established upfront as well, so that it's not a panic situation when you are faced with one. Now, the next thing I will talk about is SIMOps. So simultaneous operations. This is like a fancy name for simultaneous operations. For example, let's say you are in a dock environment and your project is in a dock. You're installing something or you're getting rid of something in a dock, like a marine dock. And in a marine dock, obviously, depending on your jurisdiction, it may have external interfaces that I'm not going to touch on in this video. I'm preparing another video to talk about external interface management with regulatory bodies and others. But in this video, what I'll talk about is that in case you are in a marine dock, you know that maybe there's a ship that is coming in, or a vessel that is coming in, or a barge that is coming or going, whatever the situation may be. You need to know what simultaneous operations activity will happen, what are the protocol and the requirement, how far away your folks needs to be from any operating vessel. In case it's an international vessel, what are the protocols there? Because sometimes what I have seen is that in case international vessel, they don't like folks on the dock if in case it's an international vessel, obviously because of customs rules and so on. The last but not least, I think we talked about other projects and presence of other projects. This is often forgotten, is that there could be other projects. Even when I say projects, it could be maintenance. Let's say someone from the maintenance team needs to maintain a pump and they have this maintenance routine. Unless you do not understand or you do not have that connection with maintenance team at site, that what activity they are planning. Because as I said, if you have seen my videos on the construction interface management, you will know in case there is a heavy lifting going on, maybe there's a road closure involved and some other interruption that you may be faced with. Unless you know exactly the interdependent nature of maintenance and what they're planning on a day-to-day basis, your project may suffer both from cost and schedule perspective. As you know, you are in operating environment and operations is the king in that environment. Tools that you may need to, now that we talked about some of the focus areas that you may want to focus on, let's talk about very briefly some of the tools that you may want to utilize for managing interface with operations during construction execution. One of the things that you may want to take advantage of is to establish that SPOC, which is single point of contact. So if you have a single point of contact from operations who is well respected, make sure that the guy who you are dealing with or the lady who you are dealing with is well respected within the operations environment. This guy has to be able to influence, not only this guy has to be able to translate both parties' demands and their requirements to each other. It needs to act as somewhat like a negotiator in between the two parties to come to a common ground that helps both parties. And this individual also needs to be able to talk in a language that allows both parties to feel good about themselves. Because obviously you will always have more to ask and less that you will actually receive. And this is true for both parties. We may think that, oh, the other party is winning and I'm not winning. But truth be told, there are constraints on both sides, and you have to be cognizant of that. So establishing a SPOC is critical. Once you establish this spot, it's also critical that you follow that interface register interdependent schedule. If it's possible, put together an integrated schedule for your site. Make sure that it doesn't need to be a super complicated level 6 schedule. It can only be a level 1 or 2 schedule that only shows that these are some of the activities that will take place. It could be maintenance, it could be some other projects that will take place during the construction execution phase of your project. That will allow you to know what will happen, who you will be dependent on, what may impact you both positively and negatively. As I said, there is always opportunity to turn challenges into opportunities by taking advantage of some of the synergistic opportunity that may be present in the field. Last but not least, these three parts that I developed for interface management is only at a very high level, not an exhaustive list of items that you may want to do to manage interface for your project. My plan is to develop a one-day course for managing interface properly for any project environment. And once I do so, I will post it online through YouTube. And if you are interested, you will be able to participate down the road. But this is it. Interface management is timely, consistent, and proper exchange of information from one party to another. It's more than communication management, and it is an involved process and often forgotten, often not paid enough attention. I hope you found this video interesting, if not insightful. Please do share, subscribe, and like, and share this video with someone that you think may be benefited for their day-to-day job or activity. And please do comment as well, because that way I will be able to improve the content and the quality of my videos, both for now and to the future. We will see each other in our next video, and have a good one. Thank you for watching.